Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. My name's Robert. I'm a VISTA leader with Hunger Free America, and I am joined today with one of our great VISTA alumni, Veronica Towers-Dioso, um, who has done a lot of work with HFA and has been kind enough to join me today to talk about her experience. So thank you, Veronica. Um, so just to start out in my extensive research, right, I was able to find that you started your career, education by going through studying music. So
That's
can
right.
you talk a little bit about that and like how you found your way from like a pretty extensive music education into the world of nonprofit work?
Sure. So similarly to Hunger Free America, I'm based in New York. And in New York, I grew up in a very vibrant music scene. I was working jobs since the age of 14 in the music business industry. And I thought that when I graduated from Berklee College of Music, that I would open my own music school specifically for girls and just try to make a strong path for musicians. Um, at that point, I was learning a lot about gender, actually, and I was learning about gender fluidity, and I decided that actually that path wasn't an appropriate one for me. And so I started working in somebody else's music school. I moved to the Philippines and worked at a music school. Actually opened a music school there with some friends, and then moved back to the States. Worked in music schools for years, but concurrently to that, I was always volunteering on the weekends, specifically in anti-hunger causes and specifically in food pantries, food banks, whatever it was like it was sort of my go-to hobby. Eventually, I just really fell out of love with the music education world, and I decided that I wanted to try to pursue anti-hunger causes as a main form of what I'm going to use my time for. And I was living in San Antonio, Texas at the time, and I wanted to move out of there, but there were very few opportunities. There were very few job offers that wanted to take somebody who was formerly a musician and wanted to just jump right into the nonprofit space. And so I found a lot of opportunities for the AmeriCorps VISTA program at that point. And the fact that this one at Hunger Free America, this program exists, the Anti-Hunger Corps, and it's in New York, made it so that I wanted to apply for a couple different positions there. I originally applied to be in the benefits access department. And when I met with the one of the managers at the time, he understood that my background in data analytics would actually be more helpful on the data team at HFA. And so that's how I ended up applying for that position instead.
That's awesome. I feel like Vistas all have such a unique way that they find them, they find their way to the program. So that's always, very interesting. And what was like do you remember your VAD goals? What was your Vista title? What was like the work you were doing?
Oh yeah, yeah. You're bringing it all back. Okay, so I'm trying to remember exactly how it was worded, but the focus was actually about improving the Salesforce database platform that Hunger Free America utilized. I think utilizes still. I'm sure that they did. They invested a lot into it. And at HFA, you're using it for a variety of different things. It's to capture donor information. It's to capture case management information. And so it's VAD, right?
Yep, that's the shorthand. Yep.
Right. My VAD was entirely related to learning about that platform and then enhancing it at HFA. I will say that I made it a career.
Right.
So I am now a Salesforce administrator. I spent my Vista term actually studying how to become an administrator and then take a certification test. I'm now a full-time, not only a full-time Salesforce administrator, but I also manage their marketing tool, Marketing Cloud. And so being a Vista really helped me launch how I was going to take my data related background and apply it to nonprofit.
That's great because that's part of like the professional development aspect of like the Vista role that I think a lot of people sign on for.
Mhm.
Did you at what point can you like talk about some of the steps you took from taking it from like a 1 year like voluntary experience to deciding and moving towards like a career goal and pathway for you?
Yeah, I knew that I had to take advantage of the fact that HFA was giving me this opportunity to learn and do the professional development that you were just mentioning. Um, I I also knew that I'm sort of like a, I don't know, in the age range of typical Vistas, I'm definitely not one of the younger ones who's right out of college or in between their college journey. I'm definitely not on the oldest end of the spectrum of people that have retired at a certain point. Um, but it was a career change. I was making a career change, so I had to take my Vista term very seriously. I had to make sure that I had a plan, like a runway for where I was going after the year was over. There was always the option to do another year in Vista, and that was kind of an exciting perspective for me because it meant that I could continue to do professional development and continue to hone my skills. But also from a financial perspective, I was super motivated to get a full-time job, ensure that I had benefits, ensure that my resume was up to snuff with other people my age and in the same sector as me.
Mhm. Well, that's great because I feel like that's like the in addition to, wanting to do something that's morally and socially impactful, like individually, I think that's a big aspect of the program. So it's really cool to see that you took it from, volunteering and doing this process to like launching yourself in that new direction in a very seemingly like successful way. That it's also like from the outside looking in, like still along the same lines and doing that same type of work. So that I think that's really cool. Um, but let's see. Um, can you talk about like what like as you got hired on with HFA, right? What was your role as like managing the national database of like the feeding programs? And can you talk about how like HFA utilizes that kind of resource it, as you,
Sure,
yeah.
absolutely. It's been about a year since I was in that position. So I don't
Okay.
have the most up-to-date information with how they're using it, but I can tell you what they were using it for when I was back with HFA.
Mhm.
So when I was with HFA, the biggest use for it was for referrals. So to identify a way for the people that called in to HFA through our hunger hotline, or the people that we were actually seeing in case management to be able to access the data that lived within our, I don't want to say hunger map, but I'll say resources map.
Mhm.
And the database behind that map sat within Salesforce, the Salesforce database. And so the most important things that I would have to do in my position were make sure that the data was clean, that the data was updated, that new data was being entered. And this is a way for that resource list, a list of thousands and thousands of resources across the entire United States to stay accurate so that we could serve people better when they reached out to us.
Great. I mean, I go back to the website all the time, and as disconnected as we are as like a federal program attached to HFA, um, the work that the organization does and the way that it synergizes with the VISTA program, um, I think is really important. So that's really cool to get a window into. Um, do you have any advice or anything that a nugget of knowledge from your experience to maybe share with current Vista volunteers?
Absolutely. Take it seriously. Pretend like this is your gateway to the next part of your career. Do what your Vista leaders tell you to on time. these people could become good resources for you when you're no longer part of the VISTA program. Really take advantage of the learning opportunities and the amount of time that's afforded to you so that you can learn. And I would say if you're not already treating your VAD like your goal, you should be.